Hi everyone, welcome to tonight's Facebook Live. I will be doing an astrology walkthrough of the full moon in Pisces. Got the chart ready for us here. Whew, gnarly chart. I literally pulled up this chart and was like, oh, I shuddered a bit because it's a bit of a rough chart. Let me pull up this live on my phone as well so I can check your comments and make sure that we're going live properly. Welcome to tonight's Facebook. All right, we are good. So, see if we have anybody on. Not yet. We'll see if we could get some people on. If not, all good. So here we are, September 14th, 2019, 12:33 a.m. is when the moon will be exactly opposing Virgo at 21 degrees. So I'm recording this for you on September 10th, so we're a couple days ahead, but because this is just about a half hour after midnight, it's going to come up pretty fast. And I wanted to record this in advance so that I could send this video with my next newsletter issue that's going out. Woo woo! I've been working so hard on my newsletters and I'm really excited about them. So if you're watching this from the newsletter, that you learned about this from my newsletter and then you went to my YouTube, welcome. And if you're not on my newsletter and you're watching this, please feel free to email me at julieannfaye@gmail.com. I would love for you to join the email list. There are special discounts I'm also doing for newsletter subscribers only that are not accessible anywhere else in my social media channels. So here we are, 12:33 a.m., full moon in Pisces coming up. So I've gone ahead and plugged that chart in. Let's see what we've got going on. So I've run this chart for just putting in New York as the location, but this is the exact time. So if you're on the East Coast, close to New York, this would actually be the exact energy you would be feeling, including the ascendant, descendant, midheaven, and IC there. How interesting that Pisces comes up on the midheaven and Virgo comes up on the IC, which are two major players in this full moon in Pisces. Pretty interesting. So what can I say about this full moon in Pisces? So let's take, first of all, I'm going to say not a fun time to be a Virgo. Not a fun time to be a Virgo. I myself am a Virgo, a very strong Virgo. I actually have Sun, Mars, and Venus, and Mercury all in Virgo. So this full moon is really affecting me. And I would say that this obviously is really affecting you as well if you're a Pisces. This is also very much affecting you if you're the other mutable signs, Gemini or Sagittarius. So any of the mutable signs are really going to be feeling this quite strongly. And those are really the major players in this full moon. Now, when we have a chart that is quite focused, as this one is, right, we basically have just a ton of major aspects between Virgo and Pisces. We have some supportive elements between Virgo and Capricorn, some supportive elements between Pisces and Capricorn, and we've got Jupiter there, we've got the North Node Uranus. We have some outer players, but for the most part, this is a Virgo, Capricorn, Pisces story, this full moon in Pisces. So when this happens, when a chart is very concentrated to particular areas, it makes the energy very, very intense for the people that are involved with those three energies, and also energies that might square those energies like Sagittarius and Gemini. You know, to an extent, Cancers will be also involved in this story, but not as much this time around. For once, not as much this time around as Virgo and Pisces, just because of the nature of what is involved. Okay, looks like I'm still going strong live. That's good. So when we have a chart that's so concentrated like this, again, it makes those people that are involved in it, the energies, the primary energies that are involved in it, under a lot of influence. And because mutable energy is changing energy, mutable means that it moves back and forth. Think of two arrows, one arrow moving forward and one arrow moving backwards. That's mutable energy. It's digesting energy. It's changeable energy. It's excitable energy. Now, depending upon what element it's in determines the behavior of how that type of changeability manifests itself. So when it's in Virgo, Virgo's way of looking at the world is to say, I want to go into the details, give me all of the information. I will process the information for you, and I will come back to you with something productive and of service. I will create an organized construct from something that was originally disorganized. So Virgo wants to approach it from the perspective of organization and practicality and service to the world and others. Pisces is also about being of service, but Pisces is about being of service from the subconscious. It's saying, what are the ways in which maybe you need to reduce some of the boundaries that you've put in place? Virgo is associated with the presence of boundaries, and Pisces is associated with breaking down those boundaries and the oneness, the collective consciousness of it all. But Pisces also rules the subconscious and the hidden and the unseen. It's associated with the ocean and Neptune. So when we have energies that are unseen, it makes it harder for us to practically work with it. That's why Virgo and Pisces have opposite approaches to healing, because Pisces is working from it from the subconscious realm, the unseen realm, whereas Virgo is working from it from the conscious realm, the practical realm. Now, the other mutables, Gemini and Sagittarius, represent air and fire. So they are of the mind, and they're really not involved too heavily in this story, except for the fact that if you are a Gemini or Sagittarius, your energy is most likely going to be squaring energy in Pisces or Virgo, especially if you have energies at the final degrees of Pisces. So you would want to look for like roughly a 10-degree orb from 21 degrees. So if you have planets between roughly 11 degrees of Gemini or Sagittarius up to basically the end of that, possibly even into the very, very beginning of Cancer or very, very beginning of Capricorn, but really until the end of that, Gemini or Sag, this is very much also affecting you, because the mutables, when they square each other, creates what I call like a mutable mess. There's a lot of energy moving in all directions, which is great for flurries of activity, can be great for excitement, can be great for stimulating conversations, can be great for options coming through, things to explore related to your healing or other people's healing, but sometimes is not always grounded, is the shadow side of too much mutable energy. And speaking from my experience, being a really strong Virgo, I feel like I am flip-flopping a lot with this particular full moon. And I'm also recording this for you while the moon is in Aquarius. It hasn't actually moved yet into Pisces. So the full effects of it have yet to fully pop, but definitely we feel the effects of a newer full moon about 7 to 10 days before it becomes exact, and then there is oftentimes a period after it, about 7 to 10 days, where we're also integrating what happened. So I have been noticing very interesting things involving sleep. So definitely Pisces is associated with the dream world and sleep. So you might be noticing with this full moon in Pisces an increased desire to rest or take naps or sleep. Extra sleep might be needed, and or the reverse could be happening. So with me, I've been noticing that I've been swinging from one extreme to the other. So over the weekend, I was needing a lot of extra sleep. All I could think about or do really was sleep. But then with the start of this week, it's been very much, I want to sleep, but I'm having a lot of ideas, a lot of activity, and I can't sleep. So you might be noticing that, and depending upon who you are, what type of energy you are, and how this is affecting you is going to determine kind of what happens with that. So I would say that there's definitely themes here around sleep and also health. So if you are a Pisces, you definitely will be feeling this, especially a Pisces in the final degrees, you know, the last roughly 10 degrees of Pisces. You'll really be feeling this. If you're a very early degree Pisces, it will still be affecting you, but not to the extent as when it's conjunct, as when the newer full moon is conjunct on your personal planets there. So if you are a Pisces, definitely feel free to leave a comment. Let me know how this full moon in Pisces is for you, especially if you're a Pisces with this conjunction here. If it's close to, you know, aspecting your moon, it would be really interesting to hear what the experience is like for you. I can't speak from the side of Pisces because I can speak from the side of Virgo. As an astrologer, I could tell you what Pisces rules and what this full moon is about. But in terms of what that looks and feels like for you, it's going to be different for each person because each person has a very unique chart that's made up of very different elements, right? And that's why you need someone like a professional astrologer to go in and translate that chart for you. So, but needless to say, we've got a lot of themes here around the conscious versus the unconscious, versus the real world versus the hidden world, practical versus imaginative, right? These are kind of the extremes of this full moon in Pisces. And let's see if I'm not seeing any comments here on my phone. Let me just pop over here real quick. Okay. So these are kind of the extremes, right? This can also be extremes around, we're going to talk more about some of these specific conjunctions and the squares that are going on with this, but there can be extremes here in caring so much, pushing so much to get to the bottom, to get to the facts or the truth of the matter, versus completely checking out and being apathetic and not caring at all. That could be another extreme you're going through. And when we factor in Jupiter, which is squaring this new moon, remember that this chart is the exact chart of the full moon. Sorry, I think I said new moon. If I say new moon, it is full moon. Which that actually reminds me of another aspect of this. I personally have been feeling like this full moon is almost like a miniature little Mercury retrograde, because we have a lot of energy in Pisces. We have also Neptune, the planet of imagination, romance, enchantment, but also illusions, disillusionment, fogginess, haziness, confusion. Neptune has two sides to it. We have that conjunct the moon. So this is about deep, but not as deep as Scorpio in that way where it's transformative. This is more so all the feels. So sensitivity, compassion, artistry. This could be a very creative time on the positive side of it. The shadow side is that you could be kind of disillusioned with what you truly feel. You might be feeling so many things, so empathic right now, that you actually don't even know what is yours and what is not yours, because Neptune dissolves boundaries. It bleeds everything together. You know, if you think about the ocean, it's so hard to like pinpoint something exactly in the ocean, or to try to explain how vast the ocean is basically impossible. And that's because that's Neptune's realm. It's not meant to be compartmentalized or explained in a very practical, grounded, meticulous way. So there's definitely an element here of a lot of emotion, a lot of sensitivity, and a lot of people that are oversleeping might be doing that because it's easier for them to actually process that sensitivity or those emotions in their dream state, because that is Neptune's rulership, is the subconscious. And because we've got this really strong square from Jupiter to Neptune, which is a square that has been happening all year long in spurts, not consistently every day throughout the year, but in certain cycles throughout the year that has been happening, this is creating a further tension or push-pull in the astrology, where it's like, okay, how do I feel? What can I imagine? What can I dream? What do my feelings tell me? Versus what do I believe? What is the higher truth? What is in alignment with my ethics and my values? Similar story, but also different at the same time. So there's tension there because it's like they're both romance languages, but they're not the same. It's like speaking Italian and speaking French. They have some similarities, but ultimately they are different languages, right? So somebody that speaks fluent Italian might understand a little bit of what a French speaker is trying to say, but not to the extent that somebody that's fluent in Italian to another fluent in Italian person would understand. So there's also that going on, which is that Jupiter is trying to provide us that higher wisdom, that information, and that knowledge, but squaring Neptune, there's a lot of feelings, a lot of guilt or emotional attachments that could be also clouding our judgment of what that higher truth is, and there is tension with that as well. And then if we look over here, so we see that Jupiter's at 16 degrees, and this is very tightly squaring Mars. So we have a Mars square Jupiter. This can create energy in excess or extremes. So you want to watch for over pushing things. You know, Mars is penetrating energy, right? So this is being maybe like overly aggressive to try to get answers. Or Mars also represents the ego. And in Virgo, it's definitely a more humble Mars, but it's also a very practical Mars and a very discerning Mars, right? So there could be something here where you're underestimating your strength or your abilities. And again, this is extreme. So you're either over pushing or under pushing. You're overestimating your ability to get the job done, or you're underestimating your ability to get the job done. So practicing trying to be in like a neutral state, kind of trying to work some of the energy, you know, a little bit in Libra will help you out with this, because if you can kind of hold your ground and say, okay, well, I don't think I'm, for example, something came up for me today and I spoke up and said, you know, I don't think I'm quite qualified for that. However, I know that that's a common thing, that people underestimate their abilities. So go ahead and put me in for it anyway. I'm still interested. You know, I've shared my 2 cents, but go ahead. So that's a good way to kind of manage that. It's to say, okay, maybe there is this underrepresenting aspect of it, which is the Mars square Jupiter, the Mars in Virgo. Mars in Virgo is looking at it like, I can't do that. I can't explore that or perform in that way. But Jupiter's saying, yes, you can, you know, and being positive or optimistic. Now, Jupiter also can, when in square, create excesses though. So there's, as I said, there could be an underperforming aspect to this or an overperforming. So you might overestimate your abilities to do things or get things done. So being mindful of that. Hi, Brandy. So good to see you. You'll definitely have to go back and rewatch from the beginning, sister. Lots of good stuff here. I know that you'll be able to go back and rewatch the replay. And anybody jumping on a little later, feel free to go back and watch this on replay as well. So other aspects to this full moon in Pisces, we've got a few conjunctions here, not super tight except for Venus and Mercury, which are right on top of each other at the last degree of Virgo, quite potent. So we have Sun conjunct Mars. This is a roughly, that's 4-degree orb. We also have Sun conjunct Venus. This is a 5-degree orb. And we also have in super wide orb, Sun conjunct Mercury, 8-degree orb, and then Venus conjunct Mercury, 0-degree orb. They're basically right on top of each other. So what does this all mean? Sun conjunct Mars, when the Sun and Mars come together, especially in Virgo, I have this very strongly in my chart. This gives you a desire to push for practicality, to push for the details, to push for getting the little details getting done. So very detail oriented. But because Mars is behind the Sun, this can also be like a slightly antagonistic energy towards yourself. So you want to be mindful of what I was sort of talking about earlier. Is the way that you're exerting your energy in excess, or is it in underperforming? And kind of trying to police yourself if you feel like you're being too unrealistic, maybe with your expectations of what you can get done. Now, Sun conjunct Venus is a beautiful conjunction to have. This attracts beauty, positive relationships. This is also, you know, definitely a relationship with money, because Venus is associated with money. And the fact that we've got Venus exactly conjunct Mercury means that this is a very communicative time, even though we do have all this full moon in Pisces energy. So, and because this is at the final degree of Virgo, this can be, Mercury at the final degree of Virgo is the height of Mercury's power in Virgo, and conjunct Venus adds communication within one-on-one connections and relationships and partnerships. So this can be on the shadow side, because if we look at some of these aspects, they're really starting to get too far away from squaring Jupiter, because some of them have already squared Jupiter and they've moved past that point, right? Mars is still in the story though. And, you know, so if we have Sun square Jupiter here, is it counting it? Yeah, so Sun square Jupiter is still in play. So this can be overestimating your strength in the matter or underestimating your strength. This could also be your perception of like your soul, your journey, feeling like it's super amazing, like high on life, that it's really going well, or feeling like things are really not working out for you, things are not going well. And this is also what I was talking about at the beginning, kind of like that mutable mess. How if you are a Virgo, Pisces, Sag, or Gemini, or you have these energy in your chart, you're very much involved in this story, especially Virgo and Pisces. So what did I want to? So I would say watch for being overly critical in relationships with Mercury conjunct Venus at the end of Virgo. That's the shadow side. The positive side, the strength, is that in the ways where you're exploring new relationships, and this is friendships, partnerships, business partnerships, all different types of relationships, in the ways that you're exploring these new partnerships and connections, this energy will give you the ability to go in to explore all of the details and to really kind of flesh it out or hash it out. So this can be a very good time to have more so work or even difficult conversations that might need grounding and practicality, because of the fact that that Virgo energy will be able to go in and really get into those details and digest it. Now, the shadow side of that is that sometimes if you spend too much time doing that, it takes the fun out of it, right? And it's like literally all work and no play. And that's why Pisces is all about play. Sag is all about play. So if you're finding yourself being too critical in your partnerships and relationships, that's where you want to start to tap into this more imaginative aspect of Pisces. So you feel like you're being too nagging with yourself or other people, that can be, again, understanding that this full moon is a lot about extremes, extreme energy, flipping from one energy to the other, with the Jupiter squares and the oppositions to all the Pisces energy. You're going to have to kind of moderate yourself, you know, and police yourself. It's like you're on a seesaw and a merry-go-round at the same time. So sometimes you might be like, and the thing is that you can't necessarily get off the ride. So you might just have to roll with some of the punches that, okay, if you're on the seesaw, which side of the seesaw are you on? Are you too much on the Virgo side or too much on the Pisces side? Are you sleeping too much and not really getting anything done? Or are you pushing yourself so hard that it's like you're not having any fun? You're just in kind of this like really angry, like frustrated, tense state. That is an indicator that you need to unplug and kind of go into that Pisces realm, which is like watch a fun show or do something that's relaxing or more of the subconscious, right? Like yoga or meditation, something like that. This can also be a very good time too to be mindful of what you're doing with your health, because Virgo tends to be much more disciplined when it comes to health. So there's going to be a lot of information coming through about your relationship, the way that you think about also your health and the physical body, because Virgo rules that too. So this could be a good time with getting some of that in alignment. This could be a good time for you to be looking at healthy routines that you can cultivate, because Virgo is also routines. So some of the energy that I'm telling you about is from the Virgo side, and that's because although this full moon is in Pisces, Virgo is very much part of this story because we're in Virgo season. So they're both heavily involved. And earlier on, I did talk about this moon with the Neptune and all of that. So let's see, how am I doing on time? Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes or so left that I want to chat here. So I want to talk about some of the supportive elements. So the supportive elements are coming from Capricorn, Saturn, South Node, Pluto in Capricorn. So if we look here, Saturn is at 13 degrees. In fact, I'm actually going to close out my Google Calendar. Saturn is at, which makes my Virgo heart stop for a quick second, but I'll get over it. So if we look here, Saturn is at 13 degrees of Capricorn. So this is supporting Mars within a 4-degree orb. It's pretty far away from the sun. The sun could use some more support there for sure, because that's about like an 8-degree orb. It still counts, but it's stronger to Mars. So, but this Saturn is pretty weak because this Saturn is in retrograde. So that's not helping anything either. Pluto is also retrograde, and that's at 20 degrees. So that is within a very tight trine, a positive aspect to the sun. So Saturn and Pluto are trying to do what they can to help out this Virgo energy. They're struggling a bit because they're in retrograde, so they're not at their full capacity. You know, it's like they're in the room with you, but the light isn't on. You know, they're not fully present. Saturn will be turning direct soon. Let's take a quick look at that. So Saturn will turn direct on September 18th. So into next week. So we've got a bit of a ways more to go with that. And I believe Pluto, yeah, so Pluto will turn direct on October 3rd. So a bit more of a ways to go with that too. So they're trying to help with this grounded energy, you know, but they're struggling a bit because there's such a dominance of energy and all the other mutables going on that they're there, they're supporting, but they're not at their full speed, their full capacity. Also, because Capricorn is earth and Pisces is water, this sextiles each other. These energies sextile each other, and that's another positive aspect. So Neptune is sextiling Saturn. It's also sextiling Pluto. Pluto is also sextiling the moon. So Saturn and Pluto are again interacting harmoniously with the moon and Neptune. But again, there's a real dominance of mutable energy, you know, so the energy is all over the place. There's definitely a need for grounding, and Saturn and Pluto are doing what they can to help support you with grounding. But ultimately, it's going to come down to you understanding these energies, understanding that Virgo is of the practical, of the conscious, that Pisces is of the unconscious, or not so much unconscious, the subconscious, the hidden realms, the imaginative states of being, the feelings information, the sensitive information. Virgo is of the factual information, the detailed information. So you're going to have to be policing yourself at this time about which energy are you in, and checking yourself before you wreck yourself if you're in one side of the extreme or the other. And you may get caught up into a scenario in which it is an extreme on one side or the other, and there's nothing you could do about it because you already got into that energy. So if that's to happen, your job is to ride it out and then take the lessons that come from that. I went through an experience like that last Friday. Was not fun. So ultimately, there's definitely a surrender component to this full moon in Pisces, because Neptune is about kind of like that God consciousness, that oneness, and that ultimate surrender. So if all else fails, you want to be stepping into surrender, asking yourself, what can I do to surrender right now? You might be having energy related to anxiety or depression. If these energies are, if you're being affected by these energies, or if these energies are extreme and you're having trouble balancing them. So you need to boil it down to, what can I do to get grounded right now? Because there are major players that are supportive in getting grounded, but also honor what these energies teach us. And also, again, that square to Jupiter is not helping the story. That ultimately, these newer full moons are transits that we go through every 2 weeks. So even if it is crazy for you right now and kind of this mutable mess, it will change. And there are things that you're learning from this that will support you and provide information for you to positively move forward. you know, with the next new and full moon cycle. So the next new moon that we have will be on September 28th, a new moon in Libra. I will be doing another Facebook Live for that. Check my events page on my Facebook business page, or if you caught this from my newsletter, I should have in the newsletter there a link to the events page and a quick little calendar of the different events I'm doing in my Facebook Lives. That will be a totally different story. We're shifting from Virgo Pisces to the energy of Libra versus, well, in that case, it'll be a new moon, so it'll be a pileup of energy in Libra. So everything has its time and its day. And right now, Virgo versus Pisces is the name of the game. So this is a time about understanding what's practical, what's real, versus what's imagined, what's feelings, and accessing information from both of those sides of the story, the practical as well as the feelings. Remember that there's an intelligence in both sides. Intelligence is of the mind and also of the body, of the emotions that we feel. And Virgo and Pisces, when they're balanced together, they provide that. It's a harmony between the conscious and the subconscious. So, and then throwing in the element to Jupiter is not helping anything. This has been the story of my life this whole year. But anyway, this is just adding even more potential craziness and chaos to the mix, because Jupiter is like, hey, let's go over here and let's explore this. And Virgo and Pisces are like, we're trying to work things out between ourselves. We don't need more fuel to the fire. So it's a little crazy right now, to say the least. But hopefully this walkthrough is supportive to you guys in being able to understand at least what's going on, because it's my belief that that self-awareness is the first step, the key ingredient in healing and self-love, is to be aware. Because through that awareness, we can detach from limiting beliefs that we are flawed or something is wrong with us, because we understand that this is part of a bigger picture, a big cosmic story, and that it is ultimately a story that's unraveling and weaving itself to offer energies to us for us to look at, to learn from, and grow from, so we can make adjustments in our life and move through them accordingly. So I'm going to wrap this up here. Thank you so much for listening to this. If this message was supportive to you, definitely let me know. Feel free to email me, julieannfaye@gmail.com. If you're watching this on replay, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know how this was for you. I always love hearing from people. And I'm sending everybody so much love and light and fairy kisses for this full moon in Pisces. Happy full moon in Pisces, everyone. See you on my newsletter. Bye-bye.